Hi, I'm Bob Moore, and today we're going to take a look at the Alpha Notes application once again, but this time I've added a rich text editor, which adds quite a bit to this project. So I'm using the Quill.js rich text editor. I'm going to show you how to actually install that and how we can work with it to enhance the application. So let's take a look at what it does. So in this case, we'll bring up the details of the West Street project here. And now notice we've got a toolbar here that gives us the option of changing the type of text, the size, whether we want bold, italic, underline, whether we can change the text color. So let's go ahead and change, let's say we want to change the background here to a light yellow. So you can see we've done that there. Maybe we want to change the text to a different color. We'll go to blue. And there we go. You can also include images. So let's go ahead and let's say we want to add another image in here. So we've got some ideas on that light there. And if I go ahead and click here, let's say, well, let's add that one in as well. These are from the local, these would be your local images that you'd have. You have to make sure you size these right, because if they're too big, you're going to have very, very large images that are stored in Firestore. So these are stored as base 64 images. So be careful there. Get the sizing right to keep the payload down. Here I've included a video, and the video can play right inside of the node itself. And this is just a link, so it's not consuming tons of space or anything like that. And you can include, lists, bulleted lists and numbered lists, and you got control over the placement of the text, whether you want it centered and left aligned or right aligned. So it adds a lot of functionality to the application for sure. And so let's take a look at how that came about. The first thing you have to do is you have to include the JavaScript libraries that are going to bring this Quill.js editor to life. So let's go look at properties. And in our properties, well, there's a couple of things that I changed. One, I did add a class for, so let's look at that since it's highlighted, the local CSS definitions. So here I've added QL video class, and I'm specifying the size. So this is going to determine when we embed a video in the note, what size do we want it to be? You can change this to be anything you'd like. Okay. And let's go down and see how we include all the JavaScript libraries that we need. So that's going to be, I think I did that in the head section tag. Yes, right here. So let's go ahead and open that guy up. And here you'll see I'm bringing in the Quill.js editor, and also the Quill Snow CSS style sheet, and I'm bringing in another third-party package here, the DOMPurify JavaScript library, and we're going to use that to make sure that the HTML that we're submitting and saving is clean, that it's not full of cross-site scripting bad stuff. Just make sure we're only going to allow in what we want to allow in to be saved into Firestore. So let's go ahead and now take a look at the controls, and we're going to look at the client-side events. So this is our initialization code. And in this case, notice, well, let's take a look at onInitializeBegin. And here I'm setting up a property. Actually, this is going to be an object that's off of the ThisAppGlobal object. And this is what we're going to use for our Quill editor object. Okay. And then on InitializeComplete, we're going to initialize Quill. So we do this one time, and we pass in the div ID of the control that's going to be used to populate the Quill editor. So remember, what we have to do here is, we're trying to play by Alpha's already established rules of, we've got a text area that's in a list control. It's synchronized with the Firestore database. It supports the real-time updating and so on. So to make life easy, all we're going to do is we're going to copy the contents of that control into the Quill editor, and then when we save it, we're going to take the contents of the Quill editor and save them back to the note control. Okay, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. So let's take a look at the initialize Quill function here in JavaScript functions. So we'll come on down and say, yeah, there's initialize Quill. So this happens one time. Notice what we do is grab the ID of the text area element, and we set the display to none. So it's not going to display. And then I insert a div right above that. That's the Quill div, and that's what we're going to use for our Quill editor. Here I'm setting some toolbar options. This is all documented up on Quill.js. If you just do a search for that, it's an open source library. It's well documented, and it's right here where we initialize the Quill editor. And notice I'm using this app.quill, and this is so that I can use the methods and functions anywhere I want in this application, passing in the toolbar options that I want, and then that's all set. Then in terms of how would we show that, well, we would go to on the controls in the detail view that we're going to bring up, which is panel card 2 here. What we'll do is on the view event, we'll populate the Quill editor with the contents of the note. So let's go look at that. So that's going to be a JavaScript function, and we're going to say populate. So let's see if, well, it's right here. So here's our populate Quill editor. And first thing we do is delete the text that might be there, if there was any. If I had forgotten to delete it at some other point in the program's flow here, grab the text area ID, which is right here. We've specified the text area element ID, and then we just go ahead and swap the values. So the inner HTML of the Quill editor is now going to be the value that's in the hidden text area element. All right, and that's what we see when we basically do this. So that's when all of this information is brought in from the notes control there. And let's see. So now when we let's see. So we've had a displaying of information, but what happens when we want to save the information? So let's look at controls, and we're going to take a look at the save button. And what am I calling when I'm calling the save button? So I'm calling a save and sync. So I have a function called save and sync that gets a parameter that says allow the video true or false. And this is going to control the filtering that we're going to be doing with our HTML sanitize function. So let's go take a look at that. So in JavaScript functions, we're going to look at save and sync. And save and sync is right here. And again, we pass in the allow video, true or false. Down here, you'll see we're doing the clean HTML. We're using DOMPurify.sanitize. And initially, we're not passing in any options into it. So it's going to be very strict in terms of what it sanitizes there. And then notice if allow video, then we are passing in this object here, which allows the tags of an iframe and allows some other attributes to be used. Then we just go ahead and set the values and ultimately save the information with sync data. So that's where we're doing that. And let's see, one other thing we'd probably want to, well, we have to know what happens when we delete stuff. So when we delete it, what we're going to want to do is we want to get the list control, and then we call the delete row function. Now here I've done the prompt as true, so it will say, do you really want to delete this? And notice now that I'm calling sync data from the detail view after delete row event. So previously I made a mistake here actually in the original notes application. I was using a set timeout. I was calling sync data after, I think it was 250 milliseconds. But I really should have been using the after delete row event in the detail view. So we'll take a look at that as well. I did make that change now up on the component in GitHub, so it will behave the way it should. And if we look at the list control, let's go look at that code and how that works. List control right here. We're going to go into take a look at our list events. And we're going to look at the detail view events. So after delete row, that's when we call sync data. Oh, so let's take a look at the sync data function here. And yeah, so the row's been deleted. We save the edits, and then we bring the panel card 1 back into view. So you should be all set there. All right, now let's take a look up at on GitHub, and we'll get to see the repo. So now you've got 2 components up there. You've got the Alpha Notes auth component and the Alpha Notes auth with Quill component. So this is the new one that's been added up there. Feel free to download that and then play around with that. Remember, you got to set up your connection strings to your Firestore. It's the same thing as that I went through in the first video I did for Alpha Notes with authentication. So it's very similar. So if you haven't looked at that video, make sure you do, and that'll describe how to connect Firestore and get all of that going for you. So anyway, thanks so much for tuning in today. It's been kind of fun to go through this. I think it's important for you to understand that a lot of new functionality can be added to an alpha component fairly easily by using outside JavaScript libraries. And, you know, basically you're limited only by your imagination here. So, again, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you once again in the future. Thanks. Bye now.